Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Services podcast. Today, we're looking at assisting SMEs on the innovation journey. I'm joined by Duane Hunter, who's a businessman who has invented a new product, and he's agreed to be with us today as we trace this innovation journey. How are you, Duane?
I'm good, thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
That's very good, and welcome. Duane, why did you undertake this project to develop a new product?
Well, it's an idea that I've been working on for probably over 25 years.
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get to those points where you have, and I hate to use the phrase, the aha moment. Yeah. You have that moment of insight where you realize that's what it needs. And then I came upon that, and I had to start it.
Okay, yeah, you did tell me you've invented some other products previously. You want to share those with us?
Yeah, I designed a simple thing, just a spanner for the dairy industry. We were fabricating pipework for the ice cream factory and dairy companies, and it was lacking a stainless steel spanner. So I designed a spanner to work on the hex nuts and slotted nuts.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This was back in New Zealand, was it?
Back in New Zealand, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. We exported to Western Australia, to the Peters and Brown at the time.
Oh, okay. I know. Have you received any advice from anyone on what you've been doing in this project?
Not specifically. I have gone out of my way to find people that I think could give me some help and some advice. The unfortunate part that I find is that everyone's got a different opinion. So it can make it very, very difficult and confusing.
Righto. But you have received advice from a patent attorney, haven't you?
Correct.
Yeah, that's good. You've undertaken this project in your own name, haven't you?
Yes, my trading name is DH Development, Queensland, and yeah, so I've done it under my trading name.
Okay, which is not a company.
No, it's not a company formed yet.
Okay.
No.
In Australia, the research and development rules allow a special rebate, tax incentive, to be calculated on research and development expenditure, but you have to be a company to be able to claim that.
Sure.
Which is a bit unfortunate. I find a lot of people who are undertaking innovation don't really appreciate that. They don't know that, and they miss out on that extra deduction. It would have been
an advantage for me with the money that's already been spent had
I
been in that situation.
So did you get any Australian or Queensland government grants for this project?
No, I haven't. No, not yet. That in itself, I believe, is quite an undertaking.
Oh yes, it's an undertaking, and to be honest, there's not many for small startup people in research and development, which is a disappointment. Some of them are available, but the biggest one of all, though, is available to everyone. Your turnover can be zero through to $20 million. That's the Accelerating Commercialization Grant. But that really starts once you've created a prototype and goes from there. And that's basically where you're at now, aren't you? You've developed a prototype for your product. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about it? That you can tell us in accordance with your patent attorney's advice?
Exactly, yes. So I have a provisional patent on the engine. Currently, it's a rotary cam, radial form. It's an internal combustion engine that has many advantages over the current internal combustion engine, being lighter, more simple, less friction parts, less rotating parts. There's quite a list, especially compared to what's currently in cars at the moment.
And you, as we mentioned before, you have a provisional patent, and that runs through to a date in June, doesn't it?
Correct. It expires in June. Yep.
And you're currently getting yourself ready to take the next stage of the patent process.
Correct. Yes, looking to when it expires, it moves into, I believe, what they call a PCT term, which is another 18 months after that first 12-month period.
Okay. So the PCT is the Patent Cooperation Treaty. It's part of an international treaty, and gives the ability to have international protection on patents. And the process you've taken so far enables you to complete on that journey, as long as you keep on going through it, which will give you international patents, which will be pretty important for the invention that you've created, won't it? Because you're dealing with an international market. Correct.
That's my intention. The intention is to be able to, if everything works right, then an engine manufacturer will pick up a license and run with the idea and get the benefits from it.
Okay, so have you analysed the features of the engine as compared to other products currently available on the market?
I have. Over the duration of developing the motor, I'm very mindful of every single aspect of what's currently in our engines of our cars, and how they are actually quite inefficient. So this motor doesn't have any reciprocating mass. It doesn't have secondary imbalances, and it doesn't have all of the ancillaries required to combat these faults that are currently in the engines. So yeah, it's there's a lot to explain, but there's also a lot of benefits to go with it.
Okay, so part of the process that I've discussed with you is calculating or estimating what the costs are going to be from now with this prototype through to when it might be a commercial product, and you're going to do that, are you?
Yes, correct. Correct. That's the path that it has to be. It has to be the journey. It has to be the path that I take to see this in the market.
So that will give you an idea of the quantum of money that you need, and then your options are to go to your savings bank account and produce that money, or go off and see your friendly bank manager and see if they'll lend it to you. And then the question that everyone in your situation then has to answer is, do you have security to offer a bank for a loan? Because that's how banks work. You've considered that approach, have you? And
I have considered it. My personal financial situation doesn't allow it to be quite that simple. What I intend to do is to get this motor completed, get it running, and then prove it to people and get some interest from other people and other investors to be able to help fund the project moving forward.
Okay, so the opportunities that are then available to you may seem daunting, but they're a fair bit better than what they were 5 or 6 years ago in Australia.
Sure.
Finally, Australia followed your country of birth in New Zealand, because one of the big advantages we got, or advances is probably a better word, in the last 5 years was crowdsourced funding equity raising, and New Zealand's had that for about 6 years longer than Australia. We were playing a bit of catch up. But crowdsourced funding equity raising's obviously one of the options. The other one is the stablemate of crowdsourced funding equity raising, which is early stage innovation companies. And the real benefit there is that for people like you who need the money, but the government put a carrot into the legislation to try to attract investors. So they get something out of it other than the share certificate. they also get a tax rebate, which is 20% of their investment. There are some sub-limits depending whether they're retail investors or sophisticated investors. But that makes it a bit more, it makes it investor friendly, but it also makes it attractive for someone in your position who's now trying to put a deal together.
Yep. That's what I'm hoping for, is using your services and your knowledge also to be able to help tap into that network.
Yeah, and just to complete that story, there is another way, and it's been in our system in Australia for 40 years, and that's called a Section 708 capital raising, which accountants watching this podcast will be listening to this podcast, I should say, will be very familiar with. That's a section that was introduced to allow small private companies like what you will be by then, because obviously you've got to be a company to avail yourself of these opportunities, to be able to raise up to $2 million if you want to go that high in 12 months from a maximum of 20 investors. But it's a way to get started to be on this process. Duane, you understand that to do this, though, you're going to need a business plan, budgets, cash flow forecasts, and projected balance sheets, and some expert opinions on the engine as to how it compares to competitors in the marketplace. This is only the start of this journey. I know you've been working for 25 years to get the prototype to the stage it's at, but this is now a different part of that journey.
Yep, it's a different beast. It's a different beast. You've got to put your other hat on. You've got to put that corporate hat on, or that business hat on, and try and focus on the paperwork and the figures.
Yeah, it's very important. And our listeners to this podcast are primarily accountants and other advisors who are servicing a market like yours. Based on your experience so far, have you got any comments generally you think should come back to accountants and business advisors about how they react to someone that had the challenges that you had?
Sure. The only thing that I would ask or suggest is that, because generally you're not ignored, because it's really hard to explain. The small steps that you need to take when you're first starting, you need to be given those steps a bit more simply, because I'm more trade-based. I'm not corporate based. So for me to have to think about all of that side of it was quite daunting. I mean, if there was something available, a grant of some kind that would help the people likes of yourself to be able to get those first stages out of the way, that would be quite helpful. And for accountants to actually know a little bit more about how to help small business enterprises.
That's part of the role of ESS BIZTOOLS, which is the company that I had that's conducting this discussion with you today. And we are trying to empower accountants with tools and resources to be able to offer these services more easily for SMEs like yourself. Okay, so obviously this whole concept of research and development and then moving into raising capital to bring a product to the marketplace is challenging but interesting, and hopefully is going to be very rewarding for you, Duane. So good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
Now, if anyone is listening to this podcast today and you'd like to know more, Duane is quite happy to have a discussion with you. So I think in the first instance, if you're interested in finding out more about this project, can you send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1-800-232-088. I'll repeat that number, 1-800-232-088. And I will pass the message on to Duane, and he'll organise a Zoom meeting or a conference call with you, and we can see that you get the answers to your questions, and we can go forward from there. So, Duane, if you've got any final comments you'd like to make, you've got a whole group of accountants around Australia and New Zealand watching you, or listening to you.
Yeah, sure. So just this motor is really worth looking into. It's really worth your attention. It can replace car engines, boat engines, airplane engines, stationary engines. So yeah, it has a higher torque rating of any similar sized engine. So because it doesn't have the rotating mass, reciprocating mass, it can rev freely or more freely. So it's a little bit more of a good combination of an internal combustion engine and a rotary, if you could think of it that way. But yeah, because it's a rotary cam. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Duane. And
thanks, Peter.
We'll be working together and seeing how this exciting project develops over the next 18 months or so. Thank you very much for joining us for our podcast today. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to this podcast or watching the video version of this discussion, where we explored assisting SMEs on the innovation journey. And I hope that the comments that Duane's made to you today will give you an overview of what a client thinks about how accountants approach research and development advice to SME clients. Have a great day. Stay safe. Goodbye, Duane. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. See you.